Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Appreciate it. And I want to say what a great honor it is to be here with all of you tonight, but I want to thank Jack for the good job he's doing. I mean, this is a... And we appreciate you. And also would like to just thank my friend Dan Branch for being here tonight. Dan, good to see you. And also say thanks to all the electeds and all the candidates for running. I mean, I'm going to tell you, and all of you know, it's not that easy, okay? And I just appreciate everybody that chooses to get themselves out in the arena and do what you do. It frankly is what makes Texas great. Great people doing great things. And I want to say, as an elected, thank you for doing that. We appreciate it very much. And also just remind all of you that how much I appreciate Coryell County. You cannot win my district, District 25, without carrying this county. You've been very good to me, and I appreciate it very much, and you can count on us being around a lot as we go through this process. I don't have a primary opponent, but I do have a general election opponent, and I merely have to remind you that Travis County is in my district. So we need to make sure we get the vote out like we do with all elections. You know, being at a Reagan Day dinner, I love to tell a great story about Ronald Reagan that I heard. I was in California, and I got to meet A.C. Smith. A.C. Smith identified himself to me. We had a great dinner. He was the best man in Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan's wedding, and the very best friend. And he told me, he said, I want you to know that I am the reason that Ronald Reagan became president. I said, well, that's great. I appreciate you doing that. Tell me how it happened. And he said he started talking to Ronald Reagan when he was governor of California. He said, you need to run for president. This country needs you. And he really wasn't sure of himself. And so finally he said one Saturday morning, I said, look, let me come get you. Let me get you in the car, and let me drive you around some neighborhoods. And you go up and knock on doors, tell people who you are, and see what they think about you running for president. So he agreed to that. So he said, we got up one Saturday morning and drove to a neighborhood in Los Angeles. And Ronald Reagan got out of the car, went up to the house, knocked on the door. Lady opened the door, and when she saw who was standing there, she screamed. She said, oh, my goodness, I can't believe it's you. Don't go anywhere. I got to call my husband and tell him you're on the front porch. So he stood there, and she went in the room where he could hear the conversation. She got her husband on the phone and said, honey, you are not going to believe who's standing on our front porch. No, I'm telling you, he's standing right there. She said, honey, you're not going to believe. And he said, who is it? She said, honey, on our front porch standing right now is Roy Rogers, and you can't believe it. So he said, Governor Reagan came back, told him that, got in the car, said, I'm not running for president. And he said, I finally got him to do it one more time. And he says, the rest is history. So isn't that a great story? Well, let me again thank you. I want to tell you, I am Roger Williams. I do serve you in the United States Congress. I'm a Christian conservative, pro-life, Second Amendment, grassroots taxpayer that's honored to be serving you, District 25. And thank you. I'm not going to be long tonight, but I do want to just say this. When you sent me to Washington, I had a pretty simple platform. I still have it. It's working pretty good for me. Lower taxes, less government, cut the spending, defend the borders, listen to your generals, understand the 10th Amendment, and always stand with Israel. And that's where I've been, and I will always be there. And I think that's what we as conservatives truly believe. Now, there's a lot of issues, as you know, up in Washington, D.C., a lot of them. But I'm a business guy. I've been in business 42 years. I still have a business. I'm unique in Congress, and in fact, I still own a business. I'm still meeting a payroll. I'm fighting every government regulation they're throwing at me right now. And I thought we needed more business people in Washington when I ran. I got up there and I found out I was right. There's a lot of issues. But I'm telling you, this country is not going to be the country we want it to be unless we get this economy fixed. Main Street is hurting. I can tell you that. And this Obama economy is a disaster. And when you listen to this president talk about how Main Street America is back, everybody's doing great, I take exception to what he's saying. Because I'm telling you that an 8% unemployment in America is not the norm. We actually have a higher unemployment than that, but 8% is not the norm, should not be the norm. 15% underemployment in America should not be the norm. 15% of the people in total poverty tonight in America should not be the norm. 47 million people right now tonight as we speak. 47 million people on food stamps. That should not be the norm. 48 million people between the ages of 18 and 64, the very heart of our workforce, has not worked one day the last 12 months. And 52% of our college graduates, when they get out in May, 52% are either going to be underemployed or unemployed of our college graduates. $2.5 billion for free cell phones is not an economy. 76% of the people in America tonight admit they live paycheck to paycheck. That's not an economy. 100,000 federal buildings totally vacant in America that we spent $1.8 billion last year in maintenance and cleanup is not an economy. And I would submit to you that the only way to fix it is to turn the economy back over to the individuals, entrepreneurs, small business owners, people that built this country. That's why I've got the fix. And I'm going to be putting out a bill the next 2 weeks. It's going to be called the Jumpstart America bill. And it's going to be pretty simple. It's going to empower the people instead of the government to get us out of the mess. And it's going to start with lowering the corporate income tax across the board. We're going to cut the personal income tax across the board. We're going to cut the dividends tax. We're going to cut the capital gains tax. This president wants to take the capital gains up to 30%. If we do that right now, we'll turn our nation into a bartering nation, no cash will exchange, and we will totally implode. So we're going to cut the capital gains, cut the dividends. We're going to totally do away with the most unfair tax there is anywhere in the world, and that's the inheritance tax. We're going to do away with the inheritance tax and add 1.5 million jobs in America. Studies show if we do that, we will add 1.5 million jobs. People say, how do you do that? Well, it's pretty simple. If you're like my family, we're saving a little money each month so we can give to the kids when they need it. Or you may have an insurance policy that you're making a premium on. Well, I would submit to you, that is a travesty. If we do away with the inheritance tax, we don't need the insurance premium, and we don't need to save money. We can spend money and pass net worth on to our kids like we should be, because this is America. Pass net worth on to, rather than insurance policy. We're going to do away with the inheritance tax. We're going to repatriate $6 trillion is sitting overseas right now, generated by companies like, you know who they are, McDonald's, Pfizer, Lockheed Martin, $6 trillion sitting over there that this president wants to make and bring back over here at 40%. They're not going to do it. And before they do that, what will they do? They will sell their companies to European companies, and we will lose even more jobs in America. We want that money to come back over here at 5%, and they will do it and give real money, not funny money, real money, come back here. The only caveat would be you can't declare dividends with it. You've got to put it in people, and you've got to put it in infrastructure. And then we're going to allow manufacturing to buy fixed assets and depreciate it 100% the year they buy it. Now, all I'm saying to you is that right there lets all of us take some risk. No matter how big you may be or how small you may be, we are now empowering families. Now you can buy a car. Now you can hire one more person in your business. Now you can expand your business, take some risk, and get rewarded, and that's what built our country. And then the other thing we got to do, which will turn our economy around, is we're going to get the government out of health care. I am not a repeal and replace guy. I am a repeal guy. Individuals should own their own health care, not the federal government and not the employer. Individuals own their own health care. Shop across state lines. Let 1,800 insurance companies tonight bid on your business. We all know, which the other side doesn't get, that competition will bring premiums down and it will bring services up. Shop across state lines. Make it tax deductible. If you leave and make it portable. If you get fired, you retire, you leave your job, you carry it with you so you don't have to deal with COBRA, another government boondoggle. So let's get the government out of health care, turn it over to the private sector. 85% of us have health care, 15% don't. Let's don't penalize 85%, Dan. Let's go see the 15%, see what their issue is, and try to take care of them. So we're going to get the government out of health care. We're going to energize the energy business. If there ever was a time for America to be the most dominant player in energy, it is right now, right this very minute. We need to be the most dominant player. We need to drill in Anwar. We need to drill in the Northwest. We need to drill in the Gulf. We need to drill on federal lands. I'm for an all-American approach like probably all of you are. Look, I'm for bio, I'm for wind, I'm for solar, I'm for all of that. The problem is I don't want the federal government telling me where we need to be the next 50, 100 years. I want the private sector to tell me where we need to be the next 50, 100 years. And while we're trying to figure it out, Let's take advantage of every opportunity we got here with the gas and the oil and be the most dominant player in the world. So if they decide to shut the Straits of Hormuz down one night, it won't bother us at all. And let's create a partnership between Canada, the United States, and Mexico and totally rule the world in energy, and that's where we need to be. And while we're at it, Mr. Obama, we need to build the Keystone Pipeline, add 42,000 jobs at $60,000 a year, and put these people to work. The next thing we got to do is we've got to have a strong military. This president has totally hollowed out our military. Fort Hood, as you know, is in our district. 342 square miles of bring it on. We have the greatest generation, the next greatest generation is right in Fort Hood, Texas. This president is hollowing our military out. He's bowing to the enemies. Our friends don't trust us, and our enemies don't fear us. And he's trying to balance the books on the backs of the military. Just today alone, Chuck Hagel now wants to balance the books on active military by cutting their pay, but yet they're going to give a minimum wage increase to people that work for the federal government on contracting basis. There's something wrong with that when you cut the military and give a minimum wage to federal contractors. I have a problem with that. We need to strengthen our military. We're the only superpower in the world. If we don't stay super, the world will implode. We're seeing it happen right before our very eyes right now. And then finally, to get America going again, we have to balance the books. We have to balance the budget of America. We have to have a budget that balances. We've got to focus on that. And that's the job of the federal government and everything else we've talked about, from tax reform to energizing the energy business, the government out of health care, and strengthen the military. In most cases, the private sector can do that. I want the government to do three things: collect my taxes, defend my borders, and help me with infrastructure, and get the heck out of my way. And that is a perfect world, and we can never, ever forget that we've got to fight for that till the bitter end. So that's kind of where I am. I'm known as the jobs guy up in Washington. It's all about putting people to work. People want to get a paycheck before they want to get a food stamp check. It's in their heart. It's in their head to go home with a payroll check to their family, not food stamps. And we've got to make sure we can deliver on that promise and deliver the American dream and not the American scheme, which is what we have right now. So what I'm saying to all of you tonight, I'm speaking to the choir, but this literally is the most important election of our lifetime in November of 2014. Look, we've all heard it. We've all heard it. Every time's been the most important. And you remember when our parents would say, 50 years from now, son, it's going to look like this. 20 years from now, it's going to look like this. We can't tell our kids and grandkids that. Only thing we can tell them is that 6 months from now, it's going to look like this. We have got to keep control of the United States House of Representatives, and we've got to get control of the United States Senate. If we do that, and if we vote, we win. If we don't, we lose. It's pure and simple. It is the most important election of our lifetime. And that's why tonight, as I like to remind people, a lot of our friends don't really understand what we're talking about tonight because they all got a job. They're working hard. They're making the car payment. They're sending the kid to school. They got their head down because they're fighting this socialism that we're fighting every day. But what's happening in America tonight is this president is pitting groups versus individuals. You know what I'm talking about. He's got a European mentality where everybody belongs in a group. And when you're in a group, you only have somebody you can reach out to. It's one, called the federal government. That's what he wants. But this country wasn't built on strong groups. I mean, he's saying you're left-handed, you're right-handed. You're black, you're white, you're blue, you're green. You got a job, you don't have a job. You went to college, you didn't go to college. He's putting everybody in a group. America wasn't built with strong groups. America was built with strong individuals. Individual freedom, individual opportunity, individual responsibility built this country. But we are fighting for this very thing tonight in America. My father would not believe it. Your parents wouldn't believe it, that we're having to fight for this. But we are fighting for it, and we can't give up on that. The other thing he's doing to us, he's pitting socialism versus entrepreneurship and capitalism, okay? He wants to own everything, right? He wants to own health care. He wants to own car manufacturers. He wants to tell us where we worship. He wants to tell us everything. It's socialism, and don't let anybody tell you it's not. I've had people say, oh, please don't use that word, Congressman. Well, I ought to use the word Marxist, frankly, okay? But he's a socialist, and we got to understand that, and he's not dumb, he's smart. The problem is we're capitalists, he's a socialist. So we're fighting against that, and we're fighting that with entrepreneurship and capitalism, the very thing that built our country. Invest 100, lose 100. Invest 100, make 100. That's what it's all about. Risk and reward in America built this country. We're fighting for it. The other thing we're fighting for tonight, are we going to be dependent on the world, or are we going to be independent of the world? It's dependence against independence. We're fighting for that. So I would just say to all of you, don't lose the sight that this is the battle we're in. And I think we have to choose. This generation has to choose. Are we going to be sheep or are we going to be shepherds? You know, are we going to be pretenders or are we going to be contenders? Are we going to be students of the game or are we going to go play the game? Are we going to be a victim or are we going to be a patriot? That's where we are tonight. And you can't get tired. You can't get worn out. You can't get mad. You can't get angry. You can't take days off. You got to take them on. There's a finish line in November that we've got to run through. So all I'm saying to you is, I'm up in Washington making certain decisions. Some hard stuff. Any of you could do what I'm doing. Let me preface it by saying that. You know, I'm just the one that decided to do it. But I'm making decisions based on fairness. And people say don't use that word because that's what Barack Obama uses. He's hijacked that word. Fairness to him is a guarantee. Fairness to all of us is an opportunity. And don't forget to use it. I'm fighting and making decisions based on fairness, family values, limited government, strong defense, lower taxes, quality education, conservative judges. Isn't that what we're all about? And we need to stay right there and don't get out of the boundary. And I've got some help making these decisions. I believe the Constitution is a document that is what it is. It's not written by Nancy Pelosi. It's not silly putty. You don't make it up as you go along. It is what it is. And I talk to my staff, what's the Constitution say? And we talk about it. So I rely on the Constitution. I rely on all of you. Many of you in this room have been called my office before a vote, say, where do we need to be on this thing? Are we okay here? So I'm listening to you. I'm also listening to my conscience. And I'm also staying very close and reading the Bible. And I'm convinced, and I know, I have not made a vote yet that I regret, because I've stuck with the Constitution, I've stuck with you, I've stuck with my conscience, and I've stuck with my Bible. And quite frankly, every now and then I've had to go talk to my best friend, Jesus Christ. And it's worked. And I will continue to do that. So let me just close by saying this. You know, my daddy told me, he said, son, if you're going to watch the parade, you can watch the parade from the porch, or you can get off the porch and lead the parade down Main Street. I, like you, have chosen to lead it down Main Street. And you go back in history of this country. You go back to the winter of 1778, when George Washington pulled those troops out of Valley Forge. When they left that winter, they went out of there barefoot on the ice. You fast forward in America, and we had brothers killing brothers in the Civil War. We had 30% unemployment during the Depression. We had injured and lost over 1 million men and women during the World Wars, the best and the brightest we had to offer. And then came 9/11. And then came the greatest takeover of the people by the federal government we've ever seen. And when you go back in those times, each one of those generations said, you know what, I'm going to step up and make it better than what it was. See, I believe in my heart and my soul. This is our generation's Valley Forge. We've got to get it right. There is no backstop for us. This is our generation's Valley Forge. We've got to understand it. It's our chance to stand up and maybe be considered a great generation. It's happening right now. So let me just say this to you. Winston Churchill said in 1943, he said, in every man or woman's life there comes a moment when you're tapped on the shoulder to do something great. What a shame it would be for that tap to come and you not be ready for that moment of greatness. And all of us, Gary, remember 9/12, when President Bush, he came right into our house that night, you remember? And he said this. He said, we will not falter, we will not fail. We have been tested, and we will pass this test. Secretary Bob Gates told me, he said, Roger, sometime in your lifetime you have to plant a tree you'll never stand under. My favorite Bible passage is Luke 6:38, where it says, a good measure will be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, put in your lap, because the measure you give will be the measure you get back. 1 Corinthians tells us in our lifetime we have to set a foundation and lay a cornerstone. And I would submit to all of us as Christian conservatives that love our country, love our state, we need to quit trying to predict the future. I believe we need to invent the future. So I would just ask all of you tonight when you go home, let's start inventing. Let's start inventing. Let's lay the foundation. Let's set the cornerstone. Let's start giving back. Let's plant that tree. Let's be ready for the test. And let's be ready for that tap on our shoulder. You look at Mount Rushmore, and what do you see with Mount Rushmore? All of you, many of you have been up there. But you see these great Americans on Mount Rushmore, and you see George Washington. And what is he telling us? He said, let's start a country that is the greatest there is with the unlimited opportunity for everybody to be somebody. And you got Thomas Jefferson sitting right next to him. He said, that's a good idea, George, but I got a good idea. Let's create some states and give the power to the states and let them figure it out too. And then you got Teddy Roosevelt sitting there and said, wait a minute, guys. God gave us a lot of environmental things we need to be proud of. We need to treat it kindly. What do you think he was saying? I believe he was saying, drill, baby, drill. That's what I think he was saying. And then you got Abraham Lincoln looking at all of them, who said in 1863 that America is the last great hope in the world today. Well, it was true in 1863. It's true tonight. It's going to be true tomorrow if we can elect conservatives in November of 2014. So I would just say this as I close. When you get up tomorrow morning and you look at yourself in the mirror, I want you to ask yourself, what do I see? What do I see in the mirror? Do I see a Washington? Do I see a Jefferson? Do I see a Lincoln? Do I see a Bush? Or do I see a Reagan? If you see one of those, we're going to win. If you don't see one of those, we're going to lose. So let's get involved. I want to tell you how much I enjoy serving all of you in the United States Congress. I do not take myself very seriously, but I do take my job very seriously. So thanks again, and may God bless all of you. May God bless Coryell County. May God continue to bless Texas. And may God bless the greatest country in the world, the one we love to call the United States of America. Thank you very much.